All right, this is going to be fun and, you know, hopefully motivating little video here. We're going to talk about just kind of overcoming that loneliness as a founder, as a founder, as a startup, or quite honestly, as a leader in any sort of significant role. There's going to be a little bit of loneliness, and we're going to talk about how to overcome that. I'm going to lead with kind of the bad news of this, but in essence, leadership is going to be a little bit lonely, and most of the time it's sort of a thankless role to take on. However, I do think that having done this for 20 to 30 years as a self-employed founder, I think I've hit on a couple things that do make it a little easier to take away some of that loneliness and that isolation that you can feel as a founder. First and foremost, just be transparent. Most people out in the world, especially anybody that's been a founder before, there's a whole community of people that if you share a little bit of the journey that you're on, you will gather folks that will support and encourage you, because there are a lot of people that are rooting for founders because they've been on that journey and they want them to do well, and they'll sign up and step up to help you along the way. And at the very least, send you lots of reinforcing feedback and encouragement. You're going to naturally, if you are transparent and you share this, you will naturally gather that audience around you. And what that audience will look like, which will become really powerful for you as a founder and as a startup trying to grow that startup, you're going to gather people that are in front of you that can be incredible wisdom and experience that you can lean on, and then you can go in front of and ask some questions. But you'll also gather a fair number of people behind you. And so that will allow you to give back and pass along your own little moments of wisdom. And you will actually be the most valuable person in their life because you just did it. So oftentimes these people who have made millions or even billions, they forgot what it was to take the step that you're at right now. So the people that are going to help you are the people that are just slightly in front of you. The second thing that I really encourage is to kind of create a crew or a mastermind of people that are in similar positions as yourself. So maybe that's you as a founder, maybe that's you as a leader inside of a larger organization, but try to get a few people that you can gather around you. Now, I've heard this characterized in a couple of different ways. The structure of this is a small group, ideally, this is my opinion, disinterested, trustworthy, smart people that you can, and this is the ultimate filter, that you can text whenever and they will respond to you quickly, right? And so I've heard this sort of called the kitchen cabinet before, but it is 2, 3, 4, probably max of like 5 people that, again, probably are in a different kind of business. They're disinterested from the standpoint of a competitive sort of thing. Again, they're trustworthy. You could show them your personal finances and they would, one, not judge you, but also give you some strong personal advice. And then of course, smart. You want people who have seen and done things. Again, they don't have to be directly aligned, and sometimes they probably shouldn't be in your business, but smart people all the same that can give you good, solid wisdom. Another sort of characterization of this, and if you want to kind of like read a little bit more about this or kind of think about what this would look like, there's a couple notable sort of historical figures who have talked about this concept of masterminds or small groups that you would gather around you. Napoleon Hill is a big one. And then the other one is Benjamin Franklin often talked about this. And again, these are small groups of people that could sort of share everything and worked in a very collaborative, trusting way. Another one that's sort of famous, I think Napoleon Hill actually talks about this group. There is a lot of sort of references to Henry Ford, Harvey Firestein, Thomas Edison, and Thomas Burroughs kind of being a high-level example of this sort of close mastermind group. And if you probably recognize a lot of those names, you know that there was obviously some real business advantages to that little cooperation. And my third tip, and probably one of my favorites, and for me personally has been the most effective, is to get a hobby. And when I say get a hobby, I want you to think really intentional about this hobby. It needs to be 1 or 2 things that you do that you found completely unplugs your brain from your business. Because as founders, as high-level leaders, our mind is always thinking about innovation, ideating, and it can just go into hyperdrive, and that can be exhausting and can even sort of flame you out. So when you're picking a hobby, you want to think about things that completely unplug your brain or take over your brain out of necessity. So a couple of my favorites that will give a good example of this. Number one, takes over my brain. I'm a pilot, right? I like to fly. When you're flying, you can't think about anything else. Like there are enough things going on there that it will consume you and you will be highly focused on that. So that's a mechanism or an approach to unplugging the brain. The other one that's kind of a different flavor of that is I like art and I like to do watercolors. And for me, that just kind of uses like the opposite probably side of my brain. I don't know all the science behind it, but that seems to use a different part of my brain. And so when I'm doing that, I just naturally unplug from my business. So another great way to sort of cure that overwhelming sense of just being so focused on your business that it actually isolates you and makes you lonely. And the last one, if you really want to avoid loneliness, is I would encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification button, and I will always be in your feed to cure a little bit of that lonely nature.